Hello there. Have you fallen into an open manhole recently? Do you find yourself in the company of strangers? Well, then you might very well be in the feature underground. My name is Hunter Lanier. I'm coming to you today with a very different episode of the show. Normally, I would be reviewing a movie ahead of release, but on this episode, because the Oscars are coming up and because there really aren't any movies coming out that I'm interested in seeing, I figured I would do an Oscar video because I have some thoughts about the Oscars, and formerly known as the Academy Awards, that may or may not be interesting to you. Let me start out by saying that if you enjoy the Oscars, I want you to enjoy them. I'm happy that you do. I'm happy that you have something that brings you happiness. As for myself, I have fallen off of the Oscars as of, I want to say, the last 7 to 8 years. To provide the context, let's start at the beginning. I first became a movie fan, a cinebuff, which is my word. I first became a cinebuff, I want to say around the year 2007, 2008, which was just kind of accidentally happened to be a really great year for movies. I think around then was when No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood were both nominated the same year for Best Picture. One of my all-time favorite movies, The Assassination of Jesse James, came out around that time. I'm Not There, another one of my favorite movies. Now, when I say I became a movie fan, I was already a fan of movies, as pretty much any kid is. I saw X-Men and Spider-Man when those came out in theaters.
He's mine!
You want to get to him, you got to go through me.
Around 2007, however, I started to develop an interest in movies in totality. And it started with The Godfather. When I saw The Godfather, it really kicked down the doors in my brain of what a movie could be. My idea of a movie was X-Men, Spider-Man, and then I saw The Godfather, and I was like, whoa, what else is out there like this? You know, I graduated from a casual, let's put something on, I'm bored, to a let me watch every Michael Powell movie in chronological order level of interest. It really sent me down the history of movies to see what's out there and to find other great stuff like The Godfather, which I have done in the 15 plus years since 2007. What year is it? 15 years. So as my interest in movies and movie history grew, naturally, so did my interest in the Academy Awards. This was before they were just called the Oscars. Because I guess as attention spans shorten, so do the names of the events. I can't remember if I bought it or someone got it for me for Christmas or my birthday, but I had a thick book of the history of the Academy Awards. And I remember bringing it to school every day, and I'd read it in class. I'd mentally take notes of movies to go home and DVR or rent on Netflix. So it was a good way, it was a good kind of foundation, a good roadmap to explore the 80 years of movies that preceded both my interest in movies and my very existence. And so I would look forward to the Oscars every year, plop down in front of the TV with a big thing of mixed nuts, and I'd enjoy myself. And it was because it was both a celebration of the year's best work, in quotation marks, as well as honoring the history of movies that have led to this point. You know, the old Isaac Newton quote, I'm going to butcher it, but I can see so far because I stand on the shoulders of giants. And that kind of respect was something that was very meaningful to me because as my interest in movies grew, I kind of developed a taste, and my taste primarily was rooted in the late 60s and 70s, as well as the 30s and 40s, but in general rooted in the past. Now, I was never under the impression that the Academy Awards, the nominations, the wins, represented any kind of actual quantitative declaration made by a council of wise men that knew things I didn't know, that these were the best movies that came out this year. I always understood that there was a skew. Oscar bait being movies that are inspirational, tearjerkers, epics, movies with likable characters, simple concepts, movies with a message. And I would say the definition of Oscar bait has kind of, I don't know that it hasn't really changed, but more has been included in what is now Oscar bait. I won't go into all that stuff. That's a whole can of worms. But I will say that this skew isn't unique to the Oscars. It's the case with any large body of opinions, because those types of interests are more universal than, say, a movie like Abel Ferrara's Bad Lieutenant, represents.
Hey, listen to me. I'm the boss, not Aunt Wendy. When it's your turn to use the bathroom, you tell Aunt Wendy to get the fuck out of the bathroom. What are you, men or mice? She's hogging the bathroom. Call me, I'll throw her the fuck out.
That's a movie that I think is better than 99% of the movies that get nominated for Best Picture, but it's not a movie that is going to move the needle for a large group of people. My favorite movies tend to be movies that have, I would say, like almost like an inverted bell curve, where they're either greatly hated or greatly loved. There's not a lot of, as opposed to, a traditional bell curve where no one really hates it, no one loves it, but everyone's like, it's good. Those are the movies that tend to get nominated and win. Now, I could always stomach the skew, because even though my favorite movies weren't necessarily being nominated, enough of them were. There were enough exceptions. And like I said before, the rest of the show felt like it was honoring what came before enough to where it kept me interested in the show. Now, at some point, I want to say around 2016, 17, 18, the Oscars, I just stopped watching. The ratio of my enjoyment and my apathy started to dip a little too far to the latter. And it was one of those things where I'm not exactly sure how much of it is the Oscars changing and how much of it is me changing on what I'm interested in watching. I will say, one thing that I started to notice was way back in 2000, it really started in 2009, when they stopped airing on the broadcast the honorary award, which, as you can probably gather from what I've been saying, was my favorite part of the whole show. And that was the thing that I looked forward to, because they bring out some legend, and this legend would get this moment of appreciation for all their decades of work while they're still alive, unlike these ridiculous posthumous awards, which are really about the people who are giving the award. Now, the idea, of course, from the producers of the show's perspective, is who wants to see some old geezer on stage when you can see, the pop star who's currently getting their 15 minutes perform a song. Taylor Swift is going to draw more eyeballs to the show than Carol Littleton, who won the honorary award this year. From this point on, it really started to occur to me that the target audience for the Oscars was no longer the cinebuff. The target audience was becoming the people who watched the red carpet before the Oscars. The red carpet started to slowly seep into the show itself. The target audience became, to quote Kinky Friedman, the people who read People magazine. The people in a more modern context who probably watch TikTok. The target audience is no longer the people that used to search Fritz Lang in their DVR with the hope that M was going to show up on TCM or HBO or something.
Ach, Mutti, ich bin dir entgegengelaufen.
Aber Kind, das sollst du doch nicht. Du weißt doch warum.
Now, obviously, they're trying to reach a larger audience with the show, but that's not interesting to me. In my perfect world, the Academy Awards would be a niche broadcast that would get very little viewership and make no commercial sense. and it would go 7 hours if it needs to. There was even that kerfuffle, like however many years ago, where they announced that they were going to cut out best score, best editing, best costume design from the broadcast. And I think I had stopped watching at that point, but I think they actually did end up not cutting those. I could be wrong. I didn't do a ton of research for this. That shows you where their head is at. Even though they went back on it, that's what they're thinking. The Academy Awards should be boring for most people. Again, in my perfect world. I think its audience should be the ever-dwindling cinebuff, a true lover of movies and movie history, not someone who has only seen 5 movies pre-Star Wars. There's a whole new generation of people that call themselves film buffs, and I don't take anything away from them. I don't take away their love of what they love, which is movies like Dune and Spider-Man and Star Wars. But that's it's a different category, right? It's a different category from the person that used to DVR movies on TCM, right? That's a different type of fan and a different type of interest. They can have that interest, but that's different. It's just a different category. It's like there are people who love to read, but there are people who love to read, Orwell and Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, and then there are people who like to read, young adult books. Those are two different things. I think the Academy Awards should be for people who love the art of storytelling and the unique blend of art forms that makes movies special. The blend of writing and music and acting and photography and so much more. All of these different art forms come together to make movies, and there's no other thing like it. Literature is a writer. Music is sometimes a band and a producer. But nothing matches the hundreds of people that come together to make a movie. It's a very unique art form. So in closing, I love movies, but I don't watch the Oscars. I have no interest in who gets nominated. It doesn't mean anything to me. There's an old saying about the only list of filmmakers who are more prestigious than those who have won Academy Awards are those who have never won an Academy Award. And the ever-growing lack of interest in movie history, the emphasis on viral moments, the general celebrity circle jerkitude that has become more prevalent. All of this has no interest to me. I could not care less. So if you love the Oscars, I'm happy for you. But on Sunday, when the Oscars are airing, I will be watching a movie.